My name is Dave Moss. I spend approximately 200 days a year at racetracks all over the country, helping professional and amateur road racers and track day riders with suspension tuning on their motorcycles. This is 2 Clicks Out.
I look at the entire bike. If I've never worked with anyone before, I ask all of these rudimentary questions. Yeah, fork oil should be changed every 4 or 5 races. But you don't know that because no one's ever told you that. And you are not alone. The bulk of the motorcycling population doesn't have a clue because it's not even in the service manual, let alone the owner's manual. So why would you change it? Right. But when I say, would you change your engine oil every 25,000 miles? Like, no, and then it makes sense. Okay. All we've got for suspension are 2 forks and 1 shock. The problem is the overlying mentality is Americans drive cars so much, you get in a car, you do the service interval, and it does its job because it's engineered to do that. Well, you take that philosophy and you apply it to a bike, and a bike needs much more servicing. It doesn't exist. So now let's check your bars. Oh, good grief. Okay, so you took the retaining bolt out, and the retaining bolt's out of this one. So what we need to do now is match this to that. Now on some bikes like GSXRs, instead of having a bolt here, they have a little tang like that. And there's a groove in there so you can move it this way, this way.
I see.
So when you took the bolt out, you have obviously infinite adjustability here. But what we're going to do is match it exactly to that. So let's take a look at that, and I also want to make sure the left bar is substantially higher than the right, but that's probably from falling over. That's much better. Okay. So you always check the entire bike. Because 9 times out of 10, the problem lies in something structural on the motorcycle that is causing the rider to behave in a certain way, which is making the bike do certain things. The bike isn't supposed to be in your consciousness. You're supposed to be 100% focused on your skill execution. The bike is incidental to that. And with all of this, our worst human quality is that we adapt. You just simply adapt it. And that's okay. Now you know if there's something happens, you have things you need to attend to before you ride it again. Okay, now we're done with all the basic stuff. We know chain tension is good. We know the front end's straight, your bars are in the correct position. Let's go ahead and start measuring. So go ahead, jump on the bike. Now you should never ask a lady her weight, but I'm going to have to.
It's okay. 142?
142.
And that's for real.
Okay. Grab the bars. Now, when you're going down the front straight, or the back straight, sorry, and you're tucked, are you against the back of the seat, or are you up against the tank?
Well, I'm kind of hanging off a little bit, and then I'm kind of like this.
As long as you're exactly where you normally are, that's the important part. Okay, so that is extremely stiff in the front. So stay right there. Ooh. Okay, go ahead, jump off for me. 85, don't worry about me. Okay, so what we have is that the back of the bike is stiff. The front of the bike is overly stiff to compensate for that. So your bike is trying to drive down the road, not along it. It's trying to drive down. And that's why the front end is so stiff. On this particular chassis, there are certain geometry aspects to the bike that are really important in terms of getting it where it should be. Now you have the Dunlops, which are a fairly big race tire, so the back of the bike is up. Usually we put a shim in there, and you have the stock shim in place. And what you want on these bikes is about a +10 in the back and a -10 in the front to get the chassis where it kind of likes to be.
10 degrees? 10
millimeters.
Okay.
So you've got that roughly in the back. We're a little shy in the front,
Okay.
but the front's overly stiff. So the bike is actually not turning in the way it should, but your zip tie is almost at the bottom. So, are you power wheeling the bike off the corners? Okay. Then it's most probably that your compression damping isn't set right and it's going through the stroke too quickly. The other part of this is your fork oil is so old that in the morning it's basically maple syrup.
I see.
And as you go through the day, the forks start to feel better, feel better, feel better as the ambient temperature comes up
Right.
and you get more heat in the forks. So we're finding a bit of a problem in old oil. So that's your next learning curve,
Okay.
is that at least twice a year you should change fork oil. The shock will go a full season, that's not an issue. But you have to change the fork oil all the time because the springs constantly scrape and you get a lot of metal inside there, which creates piles of debris,
I see.
which can get inside all your valving and cause problems.
Okay.
So we're fighting a lot of problems, but we can certainly optimize what we've got. The ambient temperature isn't going to go from 30 to 90, so we don't have a problem. If it was, I'd force you to pull the forks and change the fluid.